overview regularly, but as we do every time, we'll do a warm up and then basic introduction, historical introduction, basic terminology and ciphers, and then we'll come to modern cryptography. What is the idea behind modern cryptography? Right. So warm up. So I have a question. So I have a friend who is red green color blind. Right. So what is red green color blind? So if I show him two balls of red and green color, you can clearly see that they're different because they're red and green. But for him, they look the same. Both of them look green to him. And your task is to prove your friend that he is colorblind. Like you have to convince him that you can see that they are different, but he is not seeing them as different. So you have to prove him that he has some problem. Like okay, let's not call it a problem, but he is looking at these two balls with the same color, but you are looking at them differently. How do you prove to him? Is the question clear?
We can ask someone else to verify.
So what do you mean verify? Like okay, I'll call my other friend and make him tell to this friend so that both these balls look different to him. But he'll think okay, maybe they're tricking with me, maybe they're trying to fool me. He won't get convinced.
Okay, we can take a sample space of 1,000 and can see that the probability of different color is more.
No, so you're saying you'll call 1,000 people and make them tell that there are different color. You're saying that?
Obviously, yes, I think.
No,
I mean,
no,
that would be
you can't.
more perfect, right?
No, but still, without any scientific evidence, without any sensible argument, he doesn't believe. It is possible that you made 1,000 people lie to him, right?
I think by shining the same a beam of light with same energy, like one will absorb different amount of energy and the other will absorb a different amount of energy if they are of the same material but different color.
Okay,
Like
then
we know
how
that
will you observe? Like, I don't understand.
like
How
they
will you
heat
show it
up
to
to
him?
different extents. So
Yeah, he will tell maybe they are of different material. But they look the same color to him. He might say that, right? He might say, okay, maybe one is of one material, other is of other material. That's why one is heating up differently than other. He might say that, but he
We
will
can
say,
use a spectrometer and see their wavelength.
He won't believe. He'll tell, okay, maybe the machine is doing. You are fooling me. You have to basically properly convince him from his side.
We can give him two
by
objects.
mixing both colors,
So in that case, what you are saying
we'll
is
get
that
it a yellow.
how can he himself find out that his his observation is wrong? Basically, that is the main question, right?
Yeah, he
I mean,
himself has to. You have to devise an experiment or some
so that he can
procedure to
identify that he himself is wrong.
make him understand that he cannot distinguish these two. Like there exists some other color that is not able to see. He has to understand that.
We
How
can
will you?
we can give him two objects that are of different colors, which he previously had seen them.
Yeah, yeah, red and green. Yeah. So you'll give them to him and what?
Then he will identify both the two objects as the same color.
Okay.
So he will come to know that previously he seen them as two different color, but now he is seeing them as same color.
No. What are you saying? I don't understand.
I want to say that uh, I will give him two objects that he had previously seen them. The one is of red color and the other one is of green color.
Yeah,
He
for us it
previously
is
thought
red
that
and green, but maybe for him it is green and green only.
he previously seen them as red or
No,
green.
he's colorblind. So previously also he saw both of them as green.
Yeah,
So
there
he
is
only
no
knows
movement. Yeah.
only one color,
So
as red is equal to green for him.
What?
Okay, so what we
Like,
can
so-
do is that
So like in
we
his
can-
mind, is red and green both are the same colors, like irrespective of these balls. In general, he has considered them to be the same colors. Is that the case?
No, he sees them as the same color. He is colorblind. It's not he
But
calls
so
them as the same.
what
but
we
he
can do is
actually-
that
Does he know that red and
we-
green are two different colors?
Hello.
no, he doesn't know that.
No, he cannot perceive it.
I have I
Yes,
think I have
so-
solution.
I have an argument that suppose there are two colors, red and green. Okay, so
Okay.
I mean I am a perfect person, so I know that okay, these are different colors.
Yes.
So one thing I can tell is that he sees them same cause they are matlab, closer in wavelength. If I can, so what I will do is that I will give him red and green, and I will ask him what is the color of these balls. He will say that these are both same, and he will say suppose the color of the both the balls is X. And now what I
Yeah.
will do is that I will somehow merge it with some other, suppose this is red green, and I will take another ball blue. Okay, I mean I will take another paint blue, and I will now
Oh,
put blue layers on both the balls. Okay.
Hello.
So now for me, red and blue will give me violet, and red and green would give me some different color, and they would be far more separated in wavelength. So now when I give him both the balls, he will see that the color is different. So I would argue that, see, I have used the initially you were saying both the colors same, but after I have used the same coating on both the balls, you are seeing the two balls different. So this means that one of the color which is closer to wavelength than the other is actually the one which you cannot identify. I would give some this kind of argument. So is this correct?
no, he might still say maybe there is something in the material. That's why when you coat them with same color, something is happening. He might still say that. You will not properly
Yes, I-
convince him
So-
with your sciencey stuff. It should be very basic. Very solution is very basic.
I have another solution. So
Okay.
I will give both the
No.
balls
If
to
okay, if someone didn't answer previously, they answer, please. Like, don't give second solutions.
yes, I
someone-
have not
What if it's
answered.
a
I have
traffic
not
signal?
answered previously.
Traffic
Yeah, for-
signal.
Yeah, he's confused why they are using two same colors. He doesn't know. That's what you have to convince him
so
that there
I
exist
will
two
give
different
both
colors, which
the
is saying
balls to
same.
my friend and tell him that yes. So I'll give both the balls to my friend in different hands
Okay.
and tell him that the ball in the right hand is something unique. Okay, is special.
Okay.
And then I will ask him to switch both the balls behind his and I will
Exactly.
still
Right. Okay, fine. I think you got it. You got it. Okay. And tell the solution. You give the balls to your friend, and what he'll do, he'll put it behind his back, and either he will swap them or not. And according to him, I should not be able to tell. Right. He'll either swap or not. Randomly, he'll do something, and he'll show them to me. I can clearly see the difference that he swapped, and I'll tell you switched them. He's like, oh, what the hell? I mean, how did you say? Again he'll try. How many times ever he does it? It's like magic to him. It's as if okay, he'll realize, okay, I'm not able to see the difference, but this person can clearly see the difference. So he'll get convinced that okay, there is some difference that I'm not able to see. It's clear?
Why in this case is he not? I mean, is he not convinced that the other person is lying actually? You understand, right?
It cannot be lucky, right? See, you give them to him, he'll either swap or not. We don't know that. We don't know. How can you guess correctly every time? Like you can guess correctly every time whether he swapped or not, because you see a change in color or no change in color. So it is clearly not possible that I'm able to guess if he's swapping or not. So clearly I can see something. That's a proof.
Okay, I get it.
You get it right. It's a very simple solution.
Every time he swaps, we can easily see the difference that he swapped.
Yes.
Right.
If it doesn't swap also we can see, because it will be the same as in the
yes.
order which
So-
we gave. So he'll be
According to him,
convinced
we
that
should not be able to tell the difference 100% of time.
yes, yes,
Right.
it will become 1 by 2 power n if you do n times to guess correctly. So, but we do 100% times, which
Yes.
means he is defective. I mean, he is some problem. So yeah, so this is called zero knowledge proof, which means I am proving to him that these are different without actually showing him what colors they are, without conveying the additional information which he does not have. Without giving that information, I am proving him that they're different. So this is a very important concept in cryptography, which we showed you as a puzzle, which is nice, right? So another puzzle, say level 1. So you are dead and you find yourselves in front of 2 portals, and one of them leads to paradise and other to eternal doom. You don't know which is which. One of them is paradise, one of them is doom. And 2 guards appear in front of each portal, who are identical. And one of them always tells the truth and the other always lies. And we also don't know who is who, which is which. And we also don't know if the truth guy is in front of the paradise and or the false guy is in front of eternal doom. It can be either way. We don't know that also. Give you an answer, and based on that you have to find out which portal leads to paradise.
Can I
So
say
understand the question?
I would ask him, where did you come from?
no?
Yeah, he will say
I
some
go
place.
to-
He will say some
I'll-
place. What will you do?
I'll go to any one of them and ask that if I go to the other one and ask him which is heaven, what will he say? And whatever the answer is from anyone, the opposite is heaven.
Right.
One is
Okay.
saying true, right?
Yeah. So the solution
And
this person gave is correct, and it seems he knows the solution. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
But I'll upgrade the level. I know that you know these kind of puzzles. I tweaked the puzzle myself and created new levels. But okay, fine. So what
Can
he
you
told
please
is,
repeat the solution? Okay.
yeah, I'll explain the solution. So you go to one guy and say, what would the other guy would have told if I would have asked him where the paradise portal is? So understand the question. I go to this guy and ask, okay, what would the other guy say if I would have asked him where the truth portal is? So suppose, okay, let's do some case analysis, right? Suppose you are in front of the truth guy. So what will he think? Okay, the false guy will always show the wrong portal, right?
yes.
And then he will point. So the truth guy will point at the wrong portal, which the wrong guy would have pointed at. And if you go to the false guy, truth guy would have pointed at the true portal. So false guy will point at the false portal, right? Because he should lie.
So
Ideally,
it should
if you ask the truth guy, he will point at the true portal. But now the false guy will answer me by pointing at the wrong portal. So meaning, if you ask this question to anyone, both of them will point at the wrong portal. So you just go to the opposite portal. That will be the paradise. The solution clear? Right. I mean, if you just write this down.
No.
Yeah. So we'll move to the next puzzle. Next variant of the puzzle.
Solution is not clear, sir.
Okay. So you go to the left guy and ask, what if I ask the right guy, where is the paradise? What would he point at? You ask this question. So you go to the left guy and ask, if I would have asked the right guy, which portal would he have shown? Right. And then whichever portal this guy shows, the opposite portal is the answer. Why? Because if the left guy is a true guy, then he will point at the wrong portal, because that's what the wrong guy would have, I mean, the guy who is lying would have pointed at. And if the left, and if this guy is mm, always telling false, then again he also will point at the wrong portal, because the truth guy will point at the right portal, and since he is lying, he'll now point at the wrong portal. So okay, maybe you can watch the video later, and then or I'll post a video link of this puzzle. It's just a simple case analysis, two case analysis. So essentially, you go at the opposite portal of the answer. That will always lead you to the paradise. So now what?
You are not audible, sir.
Yeah, let me contact him 1 second.
Point to anything. They'll just answer yes or no.
Madhu, your voice got cut actually in between.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
So, okay. As you can see in the slides, you should ask a yes or no question only. You cannot ask arbitrary questions. Like previously you asked, what would the other guy point at if I asked where is the paradise? What is not a proper question. It should be framed as an yes or no question. Can you still solve it now?
We'll ask a similar question, but instead of asking where the paradise is, we'll ask one of the guards what would happen, like if I ask the other guard, are you guarding the door to paradise, what would he say?
Both of them will say yes. Isn't it? Wait. So ask the question again. Okay, ask your question again.
I'll go to one of the guards. I'll ask him the question. Will the other guard say that you're guarding the door to the paradise?
No, why would the other? Okay, no. This is not a. Again, this will fail because the other guard will not say anything. He'll only say yes or no. Right.
No, like in the sense, like I'll ask him the question, put it properly. If I ask the other guy, you're guarding the portal to paradise, yes or no, what would he reply?
So you should ask if I
Both
would have.
say yes, right?
Yeah. Wait. No. Your question is, if I ask the other guard whether you are guarding the paradise, would he say yes or no? That is the question.
Yes,
would he
that
say
is
yes?
the question.
Would he say yes? That would be the question. Yeah, something like that should work. Because I mean, we are just slightly modifying our previous question into yes or no. So it should again work. The logic will be the same. Instead of pointing, they'll say yes or no. You will select a particular portal, they'll say yes or no. It's as good as pointing to a portal, right?
Yeah, but this should work. Like this satisfies the conditions, right?
Yeah. So okay, this is not much hard, but level 3 is so these guys will only answer da ja. They answer in a different language. They don't say yes or no. You have to ask yes or no question, but they'll answer da or ja, which is you don't know which is which, but still you have to answer. So this you can try later. And yeah, Arnab will start on basics of cryptography. Hello, Arnab?
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to unmute. And yeah, just 1 second.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible. Yeah. So we'll start from here. So it's sort of an like basic formal introduction to cryptography. So all of you might have heard this name Enigma. So this was the German military communication stuff which they were doing to have a secure communication during World War II. And Alan Turing and his team cracked this machine, and it obviously changed the course of human history. Like now it's kind of fine, democracy and stuff, but if Germans won, then it would have been a totally different world. So this was a key moment in World War actually, and obviously it changed the human history. Last time someone asked how was Enigma broken. Exact details, it will take some time, but I can give a vague like answer, but not now. After I complete my part, I'll give, then you'll clearly get how it was broken. Okay. So, okay, so like some formal definition and stuff like in cryptography, all like what we want is like some secure transfer of data. Like no third party should come to know about what you're transferring actually. So there are two parties, A and B, or Adam and Eve. So between them, you are having proper communication, and it should be secured actually. It shouldn't be accessed by any third party actually. So, so there are two type of people actually. One type of people are cryptographers, like who work on creating this secure data, and another one is cryptanalyst, who sort of try to check how strong your security is actually. So they try to break your system, like security system, but they do it legally, not like the hackers. Yeah. So cryptographers, they generally propose some like mechanism by which they will make a secure system, and cryptanalysts analyze the system and they try to come up with the faults, and they both continue like this, and it led to more secure system. Obviously no system is 100% secure, because you can always brute force, but brute force can take a lot of time. So just a formal definition, I would say. So what you have, like this, we have a tuple, EDMKC, which is, you can say, a 5 tuple. Like we call it a crypto system. So here we have E, which is some encryption algorithm. Like you take your like normal, say, message, you're WhatsApping. So your message is some input text, and then which we call as plain text. Okay. And then we feed into some encryption algorithm, and we get some encrypted data actually. That encrypted data, we call it a cipher text. Okay. So it's like jumbled, and you cannot even extract any kind of useful information by seeing that data. So so that encryption algorithm, we get the encrypted data. Then that encrypted data goes through that internet and reaches your friend, you can say, over WhatsApp. Then on his hand, they'll use a decryption algorithm, which will take your that encrypted data, and it will convert it into your normal message. Okay. So this is what happens when you say WhatsApp to your friend. Direct message doesn't go over your network because it can be easily accessible by a third party. What goes is a encrypted data. Okay. So for this, so we have a thing called key actually. So this key is very important. Okay. So using this key and the algorithm, you sort of find your encrypted data. So mathematically, what we can say is that you take your text, text message, and you use the key, and and then using this, you convert it into a encrypted data. And same you do for the decryption algorithm. You take your encrypted data, you use the key, and then you convert it into your message. So you can see that if any hacker is looking at your system and he wants to find what kind of information you're passing, the thing which he'll try to find is not the text actually. What he will try to find is this key. Once he finds the key, easily he'll break all your system, because these algorithms are public. Like everyone knows the algorithm. Like it's not secret algorithms. It's well-known algorithms. The reason being that they're like, even if you assume that people are using secret algorithms to like pass data. Historically, it has been like shown that people can leak out the algorithm. Like similar stuff happened for that Enigma also. Like Enigma was also a secure algorithm, but obviously through spies and all, spies and agents, they recovered the algorithm. Like they got the algorithm. So what they needed was this key. So this is like a formal introduction. So I'll take you through some examples actually. So yeah, key, as I explained, is very important. So yeah, this is actually the most important part. So I'll skip over this slide. So yeah, this is what I was explaining. Like you take a key, you take your text and you get the encrypted data. And similarly, you take a key and you take your encrypted data, you get the text. Okay. And as I was telling, algorithm is public, but key is private. Okay. So key has to be secured actually. So I'll take this example. So yeah. So this is called Caesar cipher actually. So this is a very simple technique actually to encrypt your data. Very simple. So what you do, suppose you have a character S, you replace it with the character which is at 3 places away from it. So you replace S by V, A by D, and so on. You do this. So this security and privacy is converted into this particular term here. So can someone tell me what is the key here from the audience? Like what can be the key?
N equal to n plus 3?
Yes, yeah, means basically this number 3 is the key. So you know, if you know by how many places it is getting shifted to the right, then by you, and like algorithm is public. So just knowing this value 3, you can crack this code actually. Like if someone gives you this message, then you can figure out that the actual message was security and privacy. So what we like try to do, like if someone gives you an encryption algorithm, so basically this is an encryption algorithm. So if someone gives you an encryption algorithm, what you try to do is that given this encoded message, you try to find the actual message and you don't know the key. Okay, the important thing is you don't know the key. So one naive method is to try brute force actually. Like can someone from the audience say how many keys are possible? Like in total, how many keys are possible? For the Caesar cipher?
25.
Yeah, 25. Yeah, 25.
No, okay. I mean, so, if you count the cake on the tree run,
generally
no change. Yeah,
generally
fine.
Yeah, no change is not considered generally.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah. So so it's a brute force. So it's just 25 and you can brute force it actually very easily. It's very simple. So just as a fun exercise, can someone tell me what this actually stands for? Oh, I already gave the answer by mistake. Sorry. So it's mathematics. You can see actually like this stands for mathematics. I'll just show it how like we can brute force. Okay, so I wrote a code, so it will brute force. So it starts brute forcing, like it will like do all the shifts, and then we'll get that mathematics. See, you can observe that these all don't stand for any meaningful message, except for the last one. So it means that the key was 25 actually. So so basically I did one back, like or one forward. Sorry. So L become M, Z became A. So your key was 1. Yeah, key was 1. Sorry, I'm adding it, so you have to see it from the other side. Yeah, so I hope you got the basic idea how this thing works and what cryptanalysis is.
Yeah. 1 second. In Caesar cipher, we can only move forward.
I mean, it's same as move. Like if you see, if you move like 24 places forward, it means you moved 1 place backward. Or like 25, if you moved 25 places forward, it meant you moved 1 place backward. It's same thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had another doubt.
I want to ask a
shift
question
should be
that
same forward. Yeah.
would it not create a problem that if during using a cipher we can have, using the brute force algorithm, we can get two meaningful words from the same message? It
Yes,
might be
it is
possible, right?
possible. It is
Yeah,
possible.
it is possible. Yeah, it is
So in
possible,
that,
but the chances are like this was a very short message, but in a long message, then it's very unlikely like that two shifts will give meaningful words actually.
Yeah, I'll ask you a question. Do there exist two meaningful messages which come from the same cipher and of length at least say 30 or 40? I don't think there exists any such.
yes.
Like to
Yeah.
give me two messages so that they come from the same text with different keys. It's not
The
possible
chances
if
are
it is.
very less actually.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it does not exist even for 10, 15. Maybe 10, 15, but 20, 30 it won't be there. It won't be there.
Okay.
Yeah. So you saw that this can be easily broken using brute force. So what we'll do, we'll do some substitution. Substitution in the sense that you take each character and it gets mapped to some another character. So it is 1-to-1 mapping with the same alphabet set only. So B gets mapped to A, L gets mapped to N, U gets mapped to Z, and E gets mapped to O. So like you can do like basically what you do, you take your alphabet set, you permute it, and then start mapping. Like first one gets mapped to first one and second one. So you can see that the key is permutation, like the way you permuted your alphabet set and then did the mapping. So can someone tell that how many keys are possible? Assuming that same permutation is also allowed in my key, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, that same permutation, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So can
26 factorial?
Yeah, 26 factorial. Okay. So
26 factorial minus 1. I guess
I allowed the same permutation in this case.
Fine.
But it's not, it doesn't make huge difference. So, so 26 factorial is roughly in the orders of 10 to the power 26 actually. So if someone tries to do brute force, even with the best computer which you have, like quantum computer or like whatever, the best supercomputer which you have, it will take over 50 years actually to brute force. Okay. And with your normal computers, then forget the case actually. So it means that brute force is very bad in this case. So does this mean that this like encryption algorithm is strong? So any guesses from the audience, like whether this type of encryption is strong or not?
Can someone point out a weakness, basically? Weakness of this?
Be a bit smart with it, then we can kind of crack it down. So for example, here on top, we can see the word permutation. The end of it is TION, which is something that you see in a lot of words that get repeated and again.
Yeah, you guessed it correctly. Yeah. So what we do is called frequency analysis, sort of, as he was telling. So like suppose there is some cipher text, I'll not ask you to decode, but just assume that there is some cipher text, means some encrypted data. So what we do is like frequency analysis, like the letters like E, T, A, O are like very common letters in English language, whereas Z, Q, X, Z are very rare. Similarly, the pair of words, like we call it bigrams, T, H, E, R, O, N, A, A are very common. And similarly, S, F, E, E, T, T, and F, F are common repeats actually. So these are like common stuff. So what we try to do is that we try to find common alphabets which are getting repeated here. Okay. So like assume that I is the most common single letter, X is the most common bigram, means group of 2 letters, and XLI is the most common trigram, means the group of 3 letters. So in the English language, E is the most common letter. Okay. So what it would suggest is that I is E, like most probably. And TH as I told here, TH is the most common bigram, like group of 2 letters. So it suggests that X is T. Okay. And the most common 3 letters is like THE, you can say. So it would suggest that L is H. So we started sort of like decrypting, like sort of figuring out what can be the letters. And similarly, continuing in that fashion, we can guess that E is A. And we sort of simplified, like the small letters are the like the stuff which you decrypted. Okay, you figured out, okay, these are the actual words. So those are the small letters, and capital letters are still the original encrypted data. And moreover, you can look at some words actually, like RTAT. So most probably this should be state, like, so we can assume that R is S actually. Then add that TMZE. So it more or less it can mean that it is at that time. So you can replace M by I, Z by M, and HEVE, which can be here. And you can replace V by R. So it's sort of you're doing logical guesses, and you can, if you continue in this fashion, you will get this message like, hereupon Legrand arose with a grave and stately air and brought me the beetle. So you continue in this fashion. So you see that this method is very, very weak actually. Like you do this type of analysis and you break it. So this is what cryptanalysts do actually. So cryptanalysts, they try to break a system, like they study an algorithm and try to break it actually. So this is their work, and cryptographers' work is to improve the system. So these are just naive methods. They're actually very strong algorithms. Some of them which are obviously not broken. Otherwise, your stuff would have like net banking and all wouldn't have been that much secure. So as I promised that I like just going back to this part. Yeah. So as I told that how like I'll give a fair intuition like how Enigma was broken actually. So Enigma also was doing some kind of mapping actually. So of this type, some mapping, not exactly that substitution cipher. So the first mistake which it did was a letter never got mapped to itself actually. That was one big mistake they had. So A never got mapped to A. Okay. Like it might happen that in the same, okay, so how it is different from substitution cipher, this E and say this E may not get mapped to say same letters actually. Like this E might get mapped to G, this E might get mapped to F. Okay, so this is a subtle difference. But what I'm talking about is this E will never get mapped to E again. Okay, that was mistake number 1 which Enigma did, and mistake number 2 they did was every day they used to send some common messages like the weather is good, the weather is sunny. So some words used to get repeated actually each and every day. So along with the like encrypted data, if you have the original data, like not complete the original data, but
Also,
you can guess. Yeah.
Also, I think at the end of every message they had something like "Hail Hitler" or something.
Yeah, hail Hitler. Okay, that was also there. So they use some common words actually. So if you have the encrypted data and if you have the original data, it becomes even more easier actually to crack the code. So these were some small mistakes which these German guys did, and which Alan Turing obviously, and along with his Polish friends and all, they found it out and they cracked the code. The machine name was Bombay actually, which was used to crack Enigma. So this is how, like, sort of a vague idea on how your like stuff got cracked. And you might be wondering, okay, so this type of thing may not be applicable in today's generation, but this is still possible because like if this you'll understand if someone, especially from computer science, takes the course of networks. So what happens is the message which you send through WhatsApp, every message will have some common path actually, which we call header. So that header will be common for each and every message. Like you can assume it to be common. So so that there are chances that if your system is not like safe with respect to those type of attacks, then it's a very bad system. So your system has to be safe from those type of attacks also. So that's why this is a very huge field, and still lot of work happens, because like if any one of you is following American politics recently, then you might have seen that American like government systems got hacked by Russians. So it means that still the system is not fully secure. Like no system can be theoretically fully secure, but practically you have to make it more secure. So even this is also a very hot field actually, like hot field of research. Like traditionally cryptography and theoretical computer science, both are very hot field of research. Like unlike MLAI, which are recent areas, but these two have been traditionally very hot topics actually, because they are tough actually. Yeah, Madhu, you can take over.
Yeah. So
I had a doubt.
Yeah.
Regarding these cryptic codes, that I don't understand why they don't use, like if I assign A to some random letter Z, B to some random letter S, and I go on
Yes.
and make a list of all assigning
Yes.
these all randomly and then
Yes.
use it for communication.
Like the problem is the other
I-
side has to get the
Yeah,
message,
yeah.
right?
But I'll
So
just
how will you ensure that the
Okay,
other
okay.
side gets the
Like
message?
okay,
if you-
okay. Like look at Arnav already explained problem with the substitution cipher. What you're doing exactly is you're assuming a permutation, and then you're saying, okay, I'll just convert my text like this and then send. What is the problem? This is a problem. People can guess what is what by this frequency analysis, which is most common and stuff. That's what that is the weakness he explained.
Yeah,
Right.
but in for substitution ciphers also, it is in 80% cases it might be true. Okay, okay.
No, if the text is long enough, then they will give proper ratios, and then I can pinpoint
Yeah.
which is what.
Okay,
And,
okay.
and maybe I can do a mix of brute force and educated guess. Both I can combine and boom.
Yeah, I mean, why do they even use that cipher code? Because it can be easily encrypted, these codes, in comparison to substitution codes.
Yes, okay. So yeah, there is a trade-off between efficient encryption, decryption, and safety. So
Yeah,
there is
yeah, yeah.
always been a trade-off, right? So
Yes,
that
yes.
is a point. Fine.
Okay.
So
Thank
we'll move. So Alice, Bob, and Dave. This is a very, okay. Moving from historic cryptography. So what Arnav explained, Caesar cipher, substitution cipher, and there are many other ciphers called Wegener cipher, Playfair. Many, standard ciphers are there. Okay, but modern cryptography, I don't think we use those ciphers anymore because yeah, they have these weaknesses. So now the present computing power is even more high. We have, because we can steal millions of money if we have proper computational power. We have like say if Google decides to uh, use all its computational power to hack some guy's account, I think they can few years back, but I don't think even if they use all the computational power, they cannot break the system. So why? So what are present secure systems? How are people communicating? So it's pretty standard to assume that the two people that are communicating are Alice and Bob, A and B. It's very standard. Alice, Bob, and so okay. Let's okay. I believe in learning through puzzles. So I'll say Bob wants to send a gift. So in the end of previous session, we actually discussed this, but only 6 people were there. So I'll do it again. And there.
Your voice got cut, Madhu, actually, in between.
Am I audible?
Yeah, now you're audible.
Yeah, you're audible now.
Yeah.
Fine. Fine. Okay. The puzzle is this: Alice and Bob, they're living apart. They're in a long distance relationship. and so Bob wants to send a gift to Alice, and sadly they are living in say 1700s or something. So there is only a goods train that travels forward and backward. I don't know if trains were there. Okay, let's. So the thing is, Bob wants to send a gift to Alice, who is in a different city, and the only means of communication is a train that regularly travels forward and back. Fine. And unfortunately, there is a eavesdropper, Eve. So it is pretty standard to assume that the eavesdropper in between channel is known as Eve. Okay, so she'll try to eavesdrop like Indian aunties do. So she want to look at the messages and stuff. She just want to know what's going on. So these two obviously don't like that. So they want a secure communication. So what do you do? So what is a way? So whatever they send in the train, Eve is in the train. She can open things which are not locked. She can look inside them. Right. So what is the solution for Bob and Alice to communicate securely? So just tell what you're thinking. What are first ideas that pop into your brain?
So what basically we want is that she doesn't know which gift goes to whom, right? It's just the criteria. I mean, she can open all the gifts.
Yeah, anything in the train she can open. And obviously you'll write on the gift, right? To Alice from Bob. It's pretty clear.
So
like if you just send the
can-
gift without any protection, you can look at who is sending to whom. She can open it and look at the contents and again repack it. Basically, she has the information. Maybe Bob is trying to send his credit card details to Alice so that she can buy something she wants. And Eve can look at them and then she'll start buying.
So we can use some cryptography method to to encrypt the message. So,
yeah, how do you do that? How do you establish secure channel? Assume we're in 1700s, right? That's the point. Think in terms of box, locks, and keys. Like physically, you need physical protection. How do you establish
Yes,
that?
so on the first day we use that concept, no, for giving a gift to other by locking that box and then locking again and then sending. So we can use this same concept here.
No. Okay, you're saying
Yeah.
you'll put the gift in a lock in a box and then lock it and send it to her. But how will she unlock it? She doesn't have the key.
Yeah, no. Then she'll lock it with her lock. Then she'll send it back. Then he'll unlock. Then she can unlock.
Okay. You know the solution. I mean, you were there in the previous.
Yeah, in the first class. Okay. Am I not?
Yeah, that's what I told. I mean, you're not supposed to say.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so basically there will be two locks, which one will be unlocked by Alice and another will be unlocked by Bob.
Okay, if someone understood what he told, I want you to explain to me. Okay.
So what he's saying is that
hello.
Yeah, someone one.
Hello.
Okay.
I'm saying that
we have.
So like we take like a box or something in which we put the gift, and Bob basically puts his lock on it. And when it reaches to Alice, Alice puts another lock on it instead of trying to open the lock and sends it back. And then Bob opens his lock and sends it back. And then Alice can open.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look at it. So yeah, devise a mechanism. So the thing is, Bob will lock his gift in a box with his lock. So the lock is black, right? So he'll put a lock and then he'll send it to Alice. So what will Alice do? She will add another lock, right, which with her own key, and then she'll send it back. Now Bob will unlock it with his key and then he'll send it back. Now Alice will send it, unlock the lock and then yeah. So it requires a exchange between them and it will be secure.
I have one question.
Yes.
For them to execute this, wouldn't they have to have like decided all of this out in advance itself?
Yeah, so maybe Bob will write a letter which is unsecure, explaining the strategy. she'll tell Alice, I'll buy a lock, you buy a lock, we'll do this. Even if Eve knows this, she can't do anything, right? Eve,
Okay, yeah. So because there's like a physically, you predicted it.
is it clear? So you can broadcast your
Hello.
algorithm.
Hello.
Yeah.
This one is good, but I have another solution that if you send the box with a lock and next day you send the key like this, means first day.
Okay. I'll tell the problem. You'll first day you'll send the gift with the lock, and then she'll have it. And then you're saying you'll just send the key without any protection. Then Eve cannot do anything. Alice will open it with the key. I'll tell you the problem in real world. Duplicator.
Okay.
Whatever she finds, she can duplicate. Okay. She has a magic machine. She's a witch. So the gift on the first day, she'll copy it, and one copy she'll send to Alice normally. And the next day, when Bob sends the key, she'll open it with that key. It'll open, right? Now she can access the contents. You get the problem?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you match, yeah. So the question that was asked is, why can't Bob send the gift by locking it with his own lock, and the next day he can send a key? I'm telling the problem is, suppose Eve is a witch, she'll duplicate the contents. I mean, she'll copy the exact material that is sent on first day and create a clone of it. Now on the second day when Bob sends the lock, a key, she'll open it with that key. It should open, right? Because it's the same lock. Then she can look at the contents. Like, you understand the problem, right?
Yeah, I got it.
So what you mean to say is that this method cannot be used more than one time, right?
No. So previous solution is perfect. It will work. This solution will work. Someone has asked me why can't we simply just why can't Bob just send the gift with a lock and then send the key later? That won't work. I explained that won't work. Because in real life, gift is a network packet. It can be copied, even though like you can copy it and then later use the key that Bob sends. And then
so later we can use the key to see what it is in there.
Yes. So yeah, that is a problem. So this solution is
have happened in the Bob while writing the letter to Alice would write that I'll send the key next day. So Eve will know that the key is coming next day. So the day before the gift, she can keep it to herself, and then next day she can collect the key and then open it.
Yes.
There's no need for the duplicate.
Yeah. There's no need for duplication. This is even better. What she's saying, Bob will tell Alice about this strategy. Then Eve will just steal the gift, and then she'll take the key and then open it. That is even perfect. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, there are many problems with, there are many things we should guarantee with cryptography. Bob should know that the gift went to Alice, and Bob should know that it went to Alice only. So these are things called security, authentication. So there are 4 basic requirements in cryptography. We will see them later.
First, like suggestion kind of thing. Like, what if we have a situation where Bob sends the gift on the first day, but he hasn't discussed the strategy with Alice. So, like, because he hasn't sent a letter to Alice saying the strategy, even the Eve does not know about the strategy.
Yeah. So what if Eve copies it or steals it anyway, even though?
Yeah, but if the Eve does not know, then why would she copy it? Like,
maybe just in case. I mean, the point is, we just want Eve not to access the contents anyway. I mean, in no way it should be possible. It should not be a possibility at all. Like,
okay.
It is a vulnerability, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. I think Madhu has some problem again.
No.
Just 1 second.
Wait.
Okay.
Wait. Yeah, I came back. Cool. Why does this thing go back all the way every time? Anyway, so yeah, that is one way. Okay. Let us. Is there another way? So many modern cryptography. So this idea of exchange is very famous. It's called in symmetric key cryptography. It's called Delman. I even forgot the name. It's called key exchange. But anyway, we'll look at it later. So what I'm asking is another solution. Is there another solution that is as safe as possible, but might be infeasible, but still? Can you guys give another solution other than this double key exchange algorithm? Is the question clear?
Can they meet once?
Okay, meet once and
Yeah, it means if they meet once, then Bob will tell some algorithm to Alice that I will send the code and you just do +2. Then the next time
But
in
it
the
should be
+2
physical method,
message,
right?
yeah, once they can meet only. And then in the message which is sends, which is means +2, then in that message he will send, the next time it will be -1. Then every time he changes the thing, then Eve won't know.
no.
But the
It's
pattern
not.
can be found out easily.
Yeah, assume
-1 is
Eve.
happening.
Yeah, Eve is very smart.
No, but
very
next time
smart.
in the
Very
message
smart.
only he will tell
Okay.
that what the coming next time he will do.
Okay, if they can meet
But he can
once, then
still do
they
frequency
can.
analysis. And
You
he
know,
They can
can
meet once. They can just do the
Let us for now
key, right?
solve it for the physical security case.
Okay,
Okay,
yes,
let's
that's
not
what.
go to computer science for now. Just let's do it in real world. Let's do caveman style. Caveman. Alice and Bob are cavemen. They don't know cryptography. They only have locks, keys, and boxes and gifts. That's it.
If they're cavemen, how are they so smart?
Okay. Yeah, there are smart cavemen. That's why we are smart today. There was some caveman who was smart sometime. That's why we are like this. At every point, there was some group of smart people. That's why we have all this knowledge today. Anyway, yeah, is there another solution you can propose? Think in terms of padlocks. Try to come up something with padlocks. So what is a padlock? You don't need a key to lock it, but you need a key to unlock it. You know, right? You can just press it and then it will lock.
Yes.
Can you use that?
Oh yes, we can use that. I mean, we can. Alice and Bob can once meet, and Bob can give the key to Alice.
Alice can give
And
unlocked
then
one to Bob, and
Bob can
then
go back and
unlock
then just lock it and
with
give it to the.
Alice.
I mean, and then just send it.
Yeah,
Alice will have
kind of, but yeah,
I
more or less.
the lock to Bob.
Yeah, okay, let me tell the solution. Yeah, more or less what they told is true. Alice gives her padlock to Bob and Bob locks it with the padlock and then he'll send it to Alice. Alice will open it with her lock. So, but there is a more efficient way to realize this without meeting. So Alice has a padlock and a key only available to her. So the key is only with her. And yeah, so there is a bank. It's a padlock bank. It has everyone's padlocks in it. Bob's padlock, bank will have it. They will give. If Bob goes and asks for Alice's padlock, they'll give it. So it is a big database of padlocks of people, right? So Bob will go and ask, "Can I have Alice's padlock?" Bank employee will say, "Yeah, here, take it." He'll also tell someone else has asked it also. Fine. Anyway, so Bob will take Alice's padlock and then lock it with that and then send it to Alice. Alice will open it and yeah. This is called asymmetric key cryptography. It's called public key because the lock is public and Alice has a private key which only she has, which she has to use to unlock it. So these are pretty standard stuff, but you can ask, okay, what is it with these padlocks and stuff? What is the mathematical realization of this? So abstract idea is one-way functions. So you can multiply two numbers easily, but you cannot factorize them easily, right? So can you factorize efficiently? Does anyone? Okay, okay.
No.
I'll give a composite number. You have to find the prime factors. How can you do that?
That's prime
Guessing the
factorization.
prime number and
That's prime factorization, but it is very inefficient. I mean,
There is no proper method where you can always find the factorization properly. Like in paper.
I mean, in general, its complexity is root n or root n.
Yeah,
6
yeah,
and
yeah.
minus 1, 6 and plus 1.
No. What those high school stuff won't work. You know, factorization is
Time
hard.
complexity of prime factorization is root n, right?
Well, there are better methods, but root n is very bad. But still, okay, fine.
6 and minus 1 and 6 and plus 1 form of the prime number.
Yeah, that won't help you. That won't help you. That won't help you much. Anyway, integer factorization is a very big question in computer science. You know, if you give an efficient algorithm to factorize numbers, then you'll get a lot of prizes, and all many encryptions will fail. You know, one of very important encryptions that we use today, RSA, is dependent on this fact that multiplication is easy but factorization is hard. So, but recently there is a breakthrough in quantum computing. So there is, if quantum computers come, we can factorize integers efficiently. It's called Shor's algorithm. So anyway, we can maybe see that someday. So I'll give you an example of one particular cryptography, one subcase of RSA, just to make you understand. Okay. So public key, the bank, you want to communicate with the bank. So bank gives you public key. Public key is the pair 10, 3. So assume it as a padlock. Secret key, they have something we don't know. So Bob, you want to send a message to the bank. It's bad chef, BADCHEF. So what will you do? You convert it into numbers 2, 1, 4, 3, 8, 6 because B is 2, A is 1, D is 4. And then cube each of them 8, 1, 64, 27, 5, 12, 125 to 16. And then take remainder by 10. Divide by 10 and take remainder 8, 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 6. And then convert it back, and then this is your message HADGBEF. So what will the bank do? So the secret key of bank is 3. No one knows that. What will bank do? So they have to unlock. The guy basically use the padlock to convert this to this. Now the bank will unlock it with the key. So this they'll convert back into number. They'll again cube. So cube is this 3. So in this case, these 3 are equal, but these 2 are equal, but in general they need not be. So they'll cube again 5, 1, 2, 1, 6, 4, 3, yeah. And then they'll take remainder by 10. Boom, like it came back. It's strange, right? How did it work? So the thing is x power 9, if you divide with 10, the units digit of x power 9 is always the units digit of x. You can maybe check it out why. Like, you know, 2 power 9 is 512, it's 2. 3 power 9, if you check it out, it will be 3.
You can use the Euler's totem method. I mean, totem function.
Yeah, so there is a theorem in mathematics, you know, if a and n are co-prime, you raise a to the power of, so this is called Euler-Quotient function. Maybe we'll, okay, it's just the number of co-primes to n. Okay, let us look at the subcase when p is prime. You take any prime number, say 7. You take any number that is not divisible by 7, say 3. 3 power 7 minus 1. 3 power 6 is leaves remainder 1 when divided by 7. 3 power 6, how much is it? Someone tell me. 3 power 6.
729.
729 minus 1 is 728, and you can see it's clearly divisible by 7, right? So 104 times 7. So yeah, this is called Fermat's little theorem and Euler's Quotient theorem. You can look at it later. And this are very important in cryptography. These are very, very important. Almost many things work because of this. I mean, computing this is easy, but going reverse is hard, something like that. Something like multiplication is easy, but factorization is hard. So if I know P and Q, I can compute PQ, but if I give you PQ, you cannot tell me what are P and Q. So that's where lock and key asymmetry is coming. So yeah, that's all. So you have any questions and you want to discuss something else?
There was a suggestion. If you could